The day my parents sat me down in our cramped Karachi living room and said, "You will share your wedding venue with your cousin Aisha, it's only fair, beta." I felt the floor drop out from under me. Not because I hated sharing. Because that single sentence murdered the one thing I had fought for my entire life, the right to choose my own beginning. My name is Zara. And for 27 years I had been the good daughter. The one who aced her exams while helping Amy in the kitchen. The one who wore hijab without complaint. The one who smiled through every family gathering where aunties measured my waist with their eyes and whispered, "Wedding soon, inshallah." It wasn't just a role. It was a cage, gilded with love and expectations, but a cage nonetheless. From the moment I could walk, I was taught that family was everything, blood thicker than water, thicker than dreams, thicker than the air I breathed. In our bustling neighborhood in Gulshan-e-Iqbal, the streets outside our apartment buzzed with rickshaws honking, vendors shouting about fresh mangoes in summer or hot chai in winter, but inside the rules were silent and unbreakable. Obey your elders, sacrifice for the greater good. Never make waves, or the tide of gossip would drown you. I remember the first time I felt the bars of that cage pressing in. I was 12, sitting cross-legged on the faded Persian carpet in our living room, surrounded by cousins during Eid. Aisha, my cousin 2 years older but always acting like she owned the world, had just received a shiny new bicycle from her father. I stared at it, envy twisting in my gut like a bad kebab. "Can I ride it?" I asked, my voice small. She laughed, a sharp sound that echoed off the walls. "No, Zara, it's mine. Sharing is for babies." Her mother, Michaela, patted her head approvingly. "Good girl, beta. What's yours is yours." Later, when I told Amy about it, she just sighed and said, "Family shares joys, not things. Don't be greedy." But I saw it then. Sharing was a one-way street in our family. It flowed from me to them, never the other way around. As I grew older, the cage tightened. High school was a blur of straight A's and stolen moments reading forbidden novels. Under my blanket, stories of women who ran away to Paris or New York, who chose love over duty. I dreamed of studying graphic design in London, of creating art that burst with color and freedom, far from the muted tones of our conservative life. But when I brought it up at dinner one night, Baba's fork clattered against his plate. "Abroad? Alone? What will people say?" "No, Zara, you'll study here at Karachi University. Close to home, safe." Amy nodded, her eyes pleading with me not to argue. "We can't afford the scandals, Bata. Think of your sisters." I had no sisters, only the invisible ones, the weight of future generations I was supposed to set an example for. So I stayed. I graduated with a degree in business administration, a practical choice that pleased everyone but me. I got a job at a small marketing firm in Sadr, designing flyers for local shops instead of the bold campaigns I imagined. Every paycheck went partly to the family fund, helping pay for uncle's medical bills, cousin's tuition, the endless cycle of family first. Then I met Bilal. It was at a mutual friend's iftar during Ramadan 2 years ago. The air was thick with the scent of dates and biryani, and the mosque's azan echoed through the open windows. He was there, quiet amid the chaos, helping serve plates to the elders. Our eyes met over a tray of sheer kurma, and something shifted. He wasn't like the boys from our extended family, loud, boastful, always talking about cars and cricket. Bilal was a software engineer at a startup in Karachi, with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and a laugh that made the world feel bigger than four walls and endless expectations. We talked that night about everything and nothing. His love for coding puzzles, my secret sketches of imaginary cities, how we both hated the traffic on Shara-e-Faisal, but loved the sea breeze at Clifton Beach. Our courtship was careful, hidden. At first, stolen coffee dates at cafes in Defense, where no one from the family shopped. Long phone calls after midnight, whispering dreams into the darkness. He told me about his modest upbringing in Liari, how he'd worked 2 jobs to put himself through university, how he believed in building a life on mutual respect, not tradition's chains. "I don't want a wife who cooks and cleans," he said once, his voice soft over the line. "I want a partner who dreams with me." For the first time, I felt seen not as the dutiful daughter, but as Zara, with her own fire and fears. When he proposed on Clifton Beach, the sun dipping into the Arabian Sea like a molten coin, I said yes without hesitation. He slipped a simple gold ring onto my finger, nothing flashy like the diamond sets Aisha bragged about on her Instagram. "This is us," he said. "Simple, strong." We cried together, the waves crashing like applause. That night I dreamed of our future, a small home in a quiet suburb, weekends exploring the hills around Karachi, maybe even that master's degree I shelved. But first, the wedding. We planned it meticulously, pouring our savings into it. I wanted a garden venue in the Margalla Hills, outside Karachi, in the serene spots near Gadani, or even a rented farmhouse in Malir. But we settled on a lush garden in the hills just beyond the city limits, where the air was cooler and the stars brighter. Fairy lights draped like constellations, a stage for our favorite Qawwali singer whose voice could melt stone. Tables groaning under Ami's signature nihari, slow cooked with marrow bones until it was velvet on the tongue. And Bilal's mother's Lebanese mess hummus silky as cream, tabbouleh bursting with fresh parsley from her tiny balcony garden. I spent nights sketching seating charts on scraps of paper at work, avoiding the prying eyes of colleagues who might gossip back to family friends. I agonized over the exact shade of blush pink for my lingha, a soft rose that reminded me of dawn. Over the sea. In my mind's eye, I saw the moment Bilal would lift my dupatta, his eyes locking on mine, seeing not just a bride but the woman he chose. We told our families after everything was booked. Bilal's side was thrilled, his mother hugged me so tight I could smell her jasmine attar, whispering, "You're the daughter I always wanted." But mine? The reaction was a slow-building storm. At first, smiles and congratulations over tea. Then the questions. Why not a big hall in the city? Easier for guests. Why Qawwali? So modern. And the day same month as Aisha's engagement? I brushed it off, focusing on the joy bubbling inside me. Then Aisha got engaged. My cousin, the same girl who once borrowed my new phone and dropped it in the toilet, by accident, who told our entire family I was too modern when I wanted to study abroad, who had spent years turning every family function into her personal stage. Her fiancé was from a good family, meaning wealthy, with a chain of textile mills in Faisalabad. Her engagement party was ostentatious, a rented ballroom at the Pearl Continental with Bollywood dancers and a chocolate fountain that cost more than my monthly salary. She posted photos nonstop on social media, her ring blinding under filters, captions like blessed and obsessed. #shotavubs. Her wedding was set for the same month as mine because of course it was. Astrologers said it's auspicious. She trilled at a family dinner, batting her fake lashes. That's when the whispers started. Aunties clucking about costs, uncles grumbling about duplicate invitations. And suddenly, our living room became a war room. Baba called a family meeting. The kind where decisions were made before anyone spoke. He sat in his armchair, the one with the frayed arms from years of his worry stroking, and declared, "You're both girls, same age, same family. One big hall, one big function, half the cost. People will talk if we do separate. What will they say about us?" His voice was firm, laced with the authority of a man who had navigated Karachi's chaotic business world, running a small import shop in Bori Bazaar for decades. But beneath it, I heard fear of judgment, of the neighborhood masjid where men gossip after Jama prayers, of the extended clan in Lahore who measures success by the grandeur of weddings. Ami's eyes filled with tears, not for me, but for the shame she imagined. She twisted her dupatta in her hands, the fabric worn thin from endless washes. Zara, don't be selfish. Your cousin's father is struggling after the business loss. The floods last year ruined his warehouse. We must help. Family first, always. Her words stung like salt in a wound. Amy, who had given up her own dreams of teaching to raise me, who woke at dawn to pray for our happiness, how could she not see this was my happiness? I looked at her, pleading silently, but she averted her gaze, focusing on the steam rising from her chai. I begged that night, my voice rising in the stuffy room where the fan whirred lazily overhead. Baba, Amy, please. I've already paid the deposit from my salary. This is our day, Billos and mine. We planned it small, intimate. Sharing means having everything, the joy, the memories. I showed them the receipts, the mood boards I'd printed at work, the vendor contracts signed in my careful handwriting. I reminded them how I had cancelled my dream masters in London so I could stay and help the family, sending money home every month even after I moved to a tiny rented room near my office. I cried until my voice cracked, hot tears soaking my shower. I've given you everything. Don't take this. Aisha sat on our sofa like a queen, legs crossed, scrolling. Her phone with manicured nails painted a garish red. She didn't even look up at first, as if this was all beneath her. Then she smirked, that same sharp twist of lips I remembered from childhood. It'll be so cute, Zara. We can even share the stage for Doki, twinsies. Her tone was light, mocking, as if my wedding was just another accessory for her grand production. I wanted to scream, to tell her how she'd always taken my toys, my spotlight at school events, now my future. But I bit my tongue, the habit of the good daughter too ingrained. The arguments dragged on for days. Every evening, after work, I come home to more pressure. Relatives called. Zara, be reasonable, it's tradition. Think of the savings, we can invite more guests, make it a spectacle. Bilal tried to mediate, coming over with sweets from the bakery near his office, but even he was sidelined. This is family business, Baba said dismissively. I saw the hurt in Bilal's eyes, but he squeezed my hand under the table, a silent promise. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I locked myself in the bathroom, the only private space in our 3-room apartment. The tile floor was cold against my bare feet, the mirror fogged from my ragged breaths. I stared at my reflection until it blurred, the girl looking back at me a stranger, eyes red-rimmed, hair disheveled, lips trembling. Who was I if not the one who always yielded? I had given them my youth, my ambitions, my voice. And now they wanted the last beautiful thing I had left, my wedding day. The thought crushed me, a weight heavier than the humid Karachi nights. I slid down the wall, hugging my knees, silent sobs shaking my body. The faucet dripped steadily, mocking my tears. Bilal called at midnight, his voice a lifeline in the dark. He held me on the phone for 3 hours while I sobbed, recounting every slight, every sacrifice. We don't have to do this, he whispered, his words wrapping around me like a warm shawl. We can run. I laughed through the tears, a bitter sound. Run where? They'll find us in Lahore, in Islamabad. Even in Dubai they have relatives. The family network was vast, tentacles reaching across Pakistan and beyond, fueled by WhatsApp groups and endless calls. He was quiet for a long moment, the line humming with possibility. Then he said the words that changed everything. What if we ran somewhere they have no map for? His voice was steady, filled with a quiet strength I'd fallen in love with. In that instant, the cage cracked, just a hairline fracture, but enough to let in light. Freedom wasn't a distant dream. It was a choice waiting for me to seize it. The next days were a whirlwind of secret plans. I went to work as usual, smiling at clients, but my mind was elsewhere, researching flights, visas, hidden paradises. The emotions churned, fear of losing my family, exhilaration at the thought of breaking free, love for below that burned brighter than ever. I packed a small suitcase under my bed, hiding it behind old clothes. Every night, I lay awake, listening to the city's symphony. Distant traffic, a neighbor's TV blaring dramas about forbidden love, the occasional bark of street dogs. My heart raced with what-ifs. What if they disown me? What if regret followed? But deeper, a resolve grew. This was my beginning, not theirs to dictate. On the eve of our escape, I hugged Amy extra tight after dinner, memorizing the scent of her onions and cardamom from cooking. I love you, I whispered. She smiled, oblivious. Always, Beta. As I slipped into bed, the moon filtering through the barred window, I whispered a prayer not for forgiveness, but for courage. The cage was opening and I was ready to fly. 2 weeks later, I told my parents I was going to visit a friend in Lahore for a week. It was a lie wrapped in half-truths, the kind that tasted bitter on my tongue but necessary for survival. They nodded absently, Amy pressing a small wad of rupees into my hand for the train snacks, Baba muttering about being careful in the big city. They had no idea that my visit was a one-way ticket to rebellion, a quiet uprising against the traditions that had bound me like invisible chains. I hugged them goodbye in the doorway, memorizing the feel of Amy's soft cheek against mine, the scratch of Baba's beard. My heart ached with the weight of what I was about to do, but beneath the guilt surged a fierce determination. I was done being the sacrificial lamb on the altar of family honor. I packed one small suitcase, stuffing it with essentials. A few changes of clothes, my passport hidden under layers of fabric, the simple white dress I'd ordered online and had delivered to Bello's office to avoid suspicion. No heavy bridal lingha, no glittering jewelry that clinked like reminders of duty. Just me, stripped down to the bare bones of who I wanted to be. That night, as the clock ticked toward midnight, I lay in bed fully clothed, listening to the rhythmic snores from my parents' room. The house felt smaller than ever, the walls closing in with memories of arguments and expectations. At 2 a.m., while the entire house slept under the weight of their righteous plans, I slipped out the back gate, my bare feet silent on the cool concrete. The neighborhood was eerily quiet, save for the distant hum of a generator and the occasional meow of a stray cat. My pulse thundered in my ears, a mix of terror and exhilaration. What if they woke? What if a neighbor saw? But I kept moving, one step at a time, toward the freedom waiting in the shadows. Bilo waited in a taxi at the end of the street, his face pale in the dim streetlight, heart hammering so loud I could hear it through his chest when I climbed in. He pulled me close, his arms a safe harbor in the storm I'd unleashed. "We're doing this," he whispered, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. The driver, a grizzled man with a prayer bead dangling from the rearview mirror, glanced at us curiously but said nothing as we sped toward Jeddah International Airport. The city lights blurred past neon signs for biryani joints, billboards advertising fairness creams, and matrimonial sites reminders of the world I was leaving behind. We barely spoke during the ride, our fingers intertwined, drawing strength from each other. At the airport, we checked in with fake calm, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. A family member spotting us, a delayed flight derailing everything. But the gods were kind that night. Our plane lifted off at sunrise, piercing the pink-streaked sky like an arrow toward liberation. The Maldives greeted us like a secret the universe had been keeping just for us. As the seaplane descended, I pressed my face to the window, gasping at the sight below. Atolls scattered like emerald jewels in an endless blue expanse. Turquoise water so clear I could see schools of fish dancing in synchronized patterns. It was nothing like the murky waves at Clifton Beach, polluted with plastic and picnickers. Here, the ocean was alive, vibrant, untainted by human drama. We landed on a tiny dock, the warm salt air wrapping around us like a welcome embrace. Our overwater villa on stilts rose from the sea like something out of a fairy tale. I never dared to believe in wooden floors polished to a sheen, a private deck with steps leading directly into the lagoon. No aunties clucking their tongues. No comparisons whispered behind hands. No one measuring whose wedding was bigger or whose dowry more impressive. Just us, in a world where tradition couldn't reach. We got married barefoot on a tiny private island at sunset, the sand warm and powdery under our toes. The resort had arranged everything, a local imam in flowing white robes, a simple arch woven with frangipani flowers that scented the air with sweetness. I wore the simple white dress I had bought in the airport duty-free shop, its lightweight fabric fluttering in the breeze like wings. Flowers tucked into my loose hair instead of the heavy gold jewelry that would have weighed me down like ancestral burdens. Bilal stood there in a crisp linen shirt and pants, his feet bare like mine, looking at me like I was the only woman who had ever existed, his eyes shining with a love so pure it made my chest ache. The imam spoke gentle Arabic blessings, his voice mingling with the soft lap of waves against the shore, as if the ocean itself was whispering approval at our feet. We exchanged vows in English and Urdu, promising not just fidelity but partnership, dreams shared like secrets. When he pronounced us husband and wife, I didn't just cry, I laughed, wild and free, the sound echoing across the Indian Ocean like it had been waiting years to be born from the depths of my soul. Bilal kissed me then, soft and lingering. The sun dipping below the horizon in a blaze of orange and pink, painting our new beginning in colors of hope. We spent 7 days in paradise, each moment a rebellion against the life I'd left. Mornings began with swims in the crystal lagoon, where dolphins arched gracefully beside us, their sleek bodies cutting through the water like living poetry. I float on my back, staring at the endless sky, feeling weightless for the first time, no family obligations pulling me under. Afternoons were lazy, lounging on hammocks strung between palms, sipping fresh coconut water, sharing stories of our childhoods, the good, the bad, the unspoken. Bilal told me about his father's early death, how it forced him to grow up fast, building his life brick by brick without the safety net of extended family. I confessed my buried resentments, the dreams deferred, the quiet rage at always being second. We made love under the stars, the villa's net curtains billowing like sails, our bodies discovering each other without the shadow of judgment. Nights were for lying on the deck, counting shooting stars and making promises no one could take away, promises to travel, to build a home where love ruled over tradition, to never let anyone dim our light again. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's daughter first. I was our wife, partner, woman who had finally chosen herself, blooming in the tropical sun like a flower long denied water, on the 7th night. As the moon hung low over the water, casting silver paths across the waves, I turned on my phone for the first time. The device buzzed angrily to life, notifications flooding in like accusations. 147 missed calls from Amy, Baba, uncles, even Aisha. Voicemails filled with pleas turning to anger, then despair. Messages poured in like a storm, each one a dagger to the heart. Amy, you have broken our hearts. Come home, beta. We can fix this. Baba, if you don't return, don't call us your parents again. This shame, how will we face the world? Aisha, you ruined everything. My wedding is a joke now because of you. I hope you're happy, you selfish bitch. I read them all, tears streaming down my face, the paradise around me blurring. The guilt crashed over me like a rogue wave had I destroyed them. But Bilal held me, wiping my tears, reminding me, this is our life, Zara, not theirs. I switched the phone off again, letting the silence of the ocean soothe the storm inside. Because I was happier than I'd ever been, a happiness earned through fire. 2 months later we returned to Karachi, not defeated, but different, stronger, like steel forged in heat. We rented a small apartment in Clifton, overlooking the sea that now held our secrets. The city felt changed. The chaotic traffic on Marine Drive, a reminder of the life we'd escaped. The call to prayer from nearby mosques, a bridge to our roots. My parents refused to speak to me for 43 days, their silence a wound that festered. I sent photos from the Maldives, us laughing in the surf, the sunset ceremony hoping to bridge the gap, but no reply came. Then one evening, as the sun set in a haze of pollution, Amy showed up at our door, eyes red and swollen, carrying a tiffin of my favorite kheer, creamy and cardamom-scented dot. She didn't apologize with words. She just held me so tightly, I could feel her heart breaking and healing at the same time, her body trembling with unspoken regrets. I was scared, she whispered finally, pulling back to cup my face. Scared the world would say we failed. As parents, but seeing you, glowing like that in the photos you sent, I realized we almost failed you. You deserved your own joy, not ours. We cried together in the tiny kitchen, the kheer forgotten on the table, forgiveness tasting sweeter than any dessert. Baba came later, a week after, awkward and stiff-in his starched kurta, avoiding my eyes at first. He wandered the apartment, commenting gruffly on the view, the furniture. Then he saw the framed photo on our wall, me and Bilal laughing in the Maldives surf. No heavy clothes, no expectations. Just pure joy captured in a candid shot. He stared at it for a long moment, his beard twitching. He cleared his throat, voice rough. That looks like a real wedding, I smiled through fresh tears. It was, Baba, it was ours. Aisha's wedding happened in a noisy banquet hall downtown, lights flashing, music blaring, Bollywood hits. Guests in glittering outfits gossiping about the runaway cousin. I wasn't invited, and the exclusion stung briefly, but I didn't mind. Because somewhere over the Indian Ocean, I had already had the wedding of my dreams, the one that belonged only to me and the man who loved me enough to help me fly. To break the cage and soar, and every night, when the Karachi heat presses in like an old enemy and the call to prayer drifts through our window like a familiar lullaby, I close my eyes and taste salt water and freedom on my lips. One chose myself. Against the odds, against the whispers of tradition. And the ocean still sings my name, an eternal reminder that happiness isn't given, is claimed.